Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Rachel Klein and I will be your presenter here for the next 20 minutes. Today we're going to be talking about some reports and donations, specifically the reports under lists and labels. So if you open up your donations module and you click up here on reports and export and then you click on lists and labels, the first report we're going to look at is this list account balances report. So up here I'm going to hit reports and export, lists and labels, and then list account balances. This is a really basic report that's going to give you really straightforward, clear information. Okay, so first thing you're going to see is the options tab, and you need to specify here what year you want to see the information for and then what date range you're looking at. Okay, so you can leave it for January through December if you want to see it through the whole year, or we could look at, say, just the month of January if you wanted to. I'll show you both examples. But down here at the bottom you can check to include inactive accounts. Or you can check or uncheck to include accounts with zero balances. One isn't right or wrong, it's just up to you which you prefer to see. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and hit print real quick just so you can get a visual of what this report is going to look like. All right, so up here at the top, it reiterates the date range that we're looking at. So we're just looking at January for this. Up here at the top, it's going to give us the date that the report was generated on. And then down here towards the bottom, it's going to show us here under our building fund here. This is our subtotals, and then it's going to list those different accounts here, and then the total for our fund giving listed here as well. Here are our annual giving accounts and then the totals here along with the grand total and so forth. So this is a really great report that's going to give you at a glance based on the date range you specified the balance in those specific accounts. Okay. Now, if you want to set up subtotals, you can do so up here at the top under accounts and pledges and then subtotals. I've done a webinar on this before. We're not going to get too deep in subtotals in the donations module today, but if you want more information on setting that up, you can find that information out at churchwindows.com on our resource center. But this report specifically is going to look at how you set up those subtotals, and it's going to group those accounts accordingly. Okay. Now, let's say we want to make some changes to our columns. We would then go to the Columns tab here across the top, and let's move Period Activity over. So if I move Period Activity over to the right under Visible Columns, right now I'm going to have my Account column, my Period Activity column, and my Year-to-Date Balance column. Okay, so if we hit Print, you're going to see here we now have this additional column. Now this is sample data, so it's not going to be super transparent or super up to date, if you will. Typically, if you're running something for 1 month, your year-to-date balance isn't going to match. But this is just sample data and everything was entered in January. That's why these two columns are identical. But for you, your period activity might not always match your year-to-date balance. Typically, it's not going to, but it could. So keep in mind these numbers are not always going to be the same, okay? All right, you have some other columns in here you can include if you wish to come in the reports, guys, and just kind of move things back and forth. You're not going to break anything in here, and you can really move things back and forth to get the report to look the way that you want, okay? The Sort tab, this is going to be the order those giving accounts are going to be presented in. You can choose from a different option if you wish here in Sort Field 1. The Detail tab here, you can specify here your subtotal information. So if you want to leave out your holiday giving, you can uncheck that detail box as well. And then the Fonts tab, this would be if you feel like going in and really customizing the look or the appearance of your fonts on your report, you can do that there. Okay. All right, so that's the list account balances report. Pretty simple, but really gives you a good insight of information whether you want to look at the year as a whole or you want to look at a particular period. Okay. Now let's go talk about the list giver numbers report. I'm now on page 31. This is a really handy report if you need to see information regarding who has a number or even who doesn't have a giver number. Okay, so first option here on the options tab is use numbers current as of. This date is always going to default to the current day that you're working in the software. Okay, so it's defaulting here to the 15th. Now you can change that. If you want to see your numbers what they were at the end of last year, you can come in here and use a calendar and change it back to whatever day you want. Or if you have some future giver numbers you've set and you would like to see a report of those, you could come in here and use a future date as well. Okay, but for today's example, I'm just going to leave it on today's date. And then I'm going to choose assigned numbers. Okay, so this is going to show me everybody that has an assigned number as of today. So right now, if I went in and hit print, just so you can get an idea of what the report looks like, it's very, very straightforward, very basic. Here's my giver name column, and then here are their current giver numbers as of, again, today's date. Now you have some customizing you can do with this as well. You can choose to include their next giver number. So if they're going to have a giver number that's going to start after the 15th, you could check this box to see what that future number is. If you want to see their address or their phone number, you can check these two boxes as well and hit print. And then it's going to give you their address. And then if they have a phone number, that's going to be included as well. All right. Another really nice thing about this report, if you want to save some paper, you can increase the number of columns here. So if we take this up to 2 columns and hit print, it's then going to allow me to get more information on a page. So that's really, really handy. I feel like that's one of those fields not a lot of people notice, but it's really, really great if you can add that extra column and save some paper there as well. Over here to the right, you have a giver number range. So if you're only looking to have people who have a number in a particular range on this report, you can include that giver number range here as well. Or you can create named ranges. So you can set up, like children's envelope for this example, are always going to be the numbers 200 to 250. You just make that selection there, and then when you go to print, it's only going to pull the numbers within that specific range. And then you just use the plus and the minus to add a new range or remove a range, okay? Export to text file. We have a video on this, but this would be if you want to take this data out of Church Windows, you want to export it out, and then you want to send it on to, say, a company that's going to print envelopes for you, offering envelopes. So this export to text file is going to pull the data out. You can specify if you want to include the address and the phone number when you do the export, and then it's going to take their name information, their address information if you included it, and what their number is, and put it in a text file that you can then send off to a company that possibly is printing your offering envelopes. All right, let's jump up here to the Givers tab. This is some more filtering options. So this is going to allow you to go in and only pull people of a specific criteria. So say you only want people that have a giver number that have a status code of active. You can use this select a membership field drop box to then input the criteria to only pull particular people for this mailing, okay, or this list, I should say. You can also specify if you want members or visitors here as well. And then over here to the right, you can specify if you want to include inactive people, if they meet the criteria, and then also your membership groups, donations individuals, and donations group givers. Okay, so if you want those things included as well, you would check these boxes over here. All right, the columns tab. Not a whole lot you can do here on the columns tab. If you want to include their next number, so if they have a number starting in the future, you could move this column over here to the right under visible columns to include it on the report. And you can also include this next number start date if you want to see when their next number is going to begin. You could do that as well. I'm not sure I have any good data to show you this, but yeah, nobody in here has a future number starting, but if they did, you would see what their next number will be and then the date that next number will start. So this could be really handy at the end of the year, specifically if you have someone putting in offering at the end of the year, the first week of the new year. This could be really, really helpful, okay? A lot of people like to reorganize their giver numbers at the end of the year, and this is a great report to show you what their old numbers were and then what their new number's going to be. All right, let's get rid of these. Sort tab, also super handy. It's going to depend on how you want this report sorted. Some people want this report sorted in alphabetical order. So you would choose giver name, hit print, and you are going to have everybody in alphabetical order. Sometimes people say your offering comes in by number. You would want this report printed by their current number. So if we hit print here, it's going to be in numerical order. Okay, I get a lot of calls at the end of the year when people want the report reprinted in alpha order and number order, depending on who needs it for what purpose. And that's a great way to use that sort tab to get the information that you want. Fonts, also you want to customize the report, you can do that here. Additional options, if you would like to include the indicator for if they're a membership or visitor or if they're a donations giver, you can check these boxes. And then when you hit print, you'll see who your Ds are for your donations givers, your Vs for your visitors, and then if they are a member, they're not going to have an indicator after them, unless you've customized it in a different way, but that's the default there. One last thing I want to show you here, I'm back on the options tab, this unassigned numbers in the range option. So if you are getting a bunch of new members and you need to get some numbers assigned, you can type in a range, we'll say 10 to 50, and hit print. And this is going to show me between 10 and 50 all the numbers that are available as of the 15th that you could then assign to someone else. Okay, so these are the available numbers. All right, let's jump on to labels here. Close this. Back up to lists and labels and then labels. The example in the book talks about how to get labels with the giver number on it. I have a full in-depth 20-minute webinar on this out on the Resource Center. So if you want more information, please feel free to head over to the Resource Center and check that out because that's going to give you more in-depth information because we only have about 5 minutes left. So running labels, you can definitely do that out of the donations module. It's done exactly how you would generate labels out of membership. The screens are identical. So you can run labels in membership or donations. It's up to you. If you only have access to one module and not the other, then obviously you're going to need to run labels in that module that you have access to. But the process is identical. Okay. So step one, that is going to be who you need labels for. All right, so who do you need to generate a label for? If we don't change anything here on step one and we just hit next, you can see right here in this box who's going to get a label. We're going to have members and visitors are going to be included on this, but it's also going to include donations individuals and donations groups. So any of those people that you've put in just into the donations module. If you want to change that criteria, hit this Edit People Selection button, and then you can come in here and you can say you just want members. You can uncheck donations givers if you want to, or you can come in here and again, you can put in that criteria from membership. So if you want the status code people or the people who have an age in a particular range, you can do all of that right here in this criteria drop box. Okay. Over here to the right, you have your giver number field. So if you would like to focus in on pulling people that have a giver number in a particular range, you would do that here as well. So I could say I want to exclude people without a number. So I would uncheck that box, and then you could specify a range. Say I only want people who have giver numbers 1 to 100. Could easily do that there. Okay. I'm going to leave everybody with a number, but I'm going to get rid of people who don't have one for this criteria. I'm going to say okay, and now here's my new criteria that filled in. Now you can also come down here and add some giving and pledging information. So say you only want people who gave. You could come into this add giving pledging selection criteria. You can choose only those who gave, and you can say within a particular date range. So let's say I only want people who gave since 2020 through the end of this year. And I want all under pledging because I want them regardless of if they've pledged or not. Then I can hit add, and now here is my criteria. So for the date range of 2020 through 2023, I want only those who gave regardless of pledging. So these two, because I have an and here, are going to work together. So for someone to be on this report, they have to meet this above criteria and they have to meet this below criteria. Okay? But again, this is all customizable and up to you for what you need to see on your report. I'm going to come to the sort tab and I want them in, let's do giver number order. All right, so I want them by number. So I'm going to hit next. So step one again is who you need to see. Step two now is going to be what do you want that label layout to print for those people that meet your criteria. So you have a couple templates in here. You have a Avery 5160 with mailing label, and then you also have a with names option. If you choose the mailing label option, this layout is going to give you their family name and then their address below it. If you choose the Avery 5160 with names, that's going to list out the individual name for each person and then their address as well. Okay. Now, you have to choose your label layout, but you also have to choose your one label per. So you can decide if you want one label per each of these individuals, if you want one label per giving unit, so that is going to look at who's checked gives with family and who isn't, or one label per family unit. So it's up to you how many labels you need for the people or the individuals that meet your criteria. Okay, for now I'm going to choose giving unit. Okay, now let's say I want to include their mailing label or their family name, their address, and their giver number on the label itself. I'm going to need to create a new label layout. Hit the new button there. I am using a 5160. That's always going to be the default, so I'm going to leave that here. But if you find you're using different labels, you have a lot of different options in here to choose from. And then I'm just going to hit finish, and it's going to take me right into the report designer. I know people get a little overwhelmed in here, but it's pretty easy to manipulate these fields. So right now, my label is this, space, and it's only printing the mailing label and the current address. I'm going to click and hold and scooch this down because I want to make room for their giver number to print here as well. So now I have this space available. I'm going to come over here to the right, and I'm looking for this membership field here. I'm going to click and hold, drag it over, and I'm going to drop it right here. As soon as I drop that field, it wants me to tell it what I want to see or what information I want to print in that mailing label. So here are all the different fields available to print, but I'm going to find my giver number field, and I'm going to say OK. So right now, I am going to have a label that includes the giver number and the mailing label with their address. So once you get those fields included, you're going to do a save as, and I'm going to call this a name based on what's included in the layout. So if I go to run this in a couple months, I am going to know what's included on here because I will not remember. So I'm going to call it mailing label, address, and giver number. I'm going to say OK. It's going to save, and then I'm going to close. So now on step 2, I have 5160 mailing label, address, and giver number. This is that field or that layout that I just created. One label per. I'm going to choose giving unit, and I'm going to hit print. and that is going to give me my print preview of that label layout that I just created. And you can tell that it's sorting in numerical order, which is just what I want. Here's my giver number, here's my name, and then here is their address. Okay. There's a lot more information on labels. So if you want more in-depth information on labels, we don't have time to do that today, but you can head out to the Resource Center, like I mentioned, and feel free to watch the different webinars that we've done in the past on generating labels, because there's a lot of customizing you can do in here, which is nice. All right, today, because we covered 3 reports, I can't go into it into too much detail just because I'm already a couple minutes past time. But all right, that is all the information that I wanted to go over with you all today.